Hello, we are here today at the Secret Club, and here with me is this secret astronaut and
Ken?
And Annabelle.
and tell us, where are we? What is this place?
This is our workshop, and this is where we make everything. If you've been to one of our events, you'll notice that there's always a lot of stuff. There's costumes and props and, tools. This is a tool, really. And this is where we make all that stuff and where we come up with ideas for what to play next.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit like our idea factory. So we sit here and then come up with things and experiment and make. And it's great fun because it's so many different things we do.
I mean, the simple one would be to do it like that.
Yeah. But then you wouldn't have anything around here.
No.
Is that the
Would
idea?
you like something around there? Because you could also...
Could be cool to have some texture.
Okay.
Well, that's what I initially
Yeah.
thought, but I'm not entirely sure because I thought I had seen something that I quite like, but I don't think I've written it down here. I need to come back to that at some point.
Okay.
But I had initially thought we wrap around so that there's sort of a bit of a texture. Probably quite close together. But then maybe this side would be nicer.
You can also overlap.
I mean, we also have some bits of leather left, so we could cut our own strips if we wanted them to be wider and sort of more regular.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of white or yellow circles for that pine cone thing as well. I'll just get it for this one to
that's
have
so
them all over.
Yeah, I actually think we should do that. That'd be cool.
Following
And then
the path.
we said we wanted something on these two sides next to the hand symbol, but I haven't decided yet.
Maybe.
What have you got?
I've got a tree and a heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think the heart shape would lend itself to it because it's
it's a bit triangular there.
What are your plans for this year? Because you have a January 2019, and I was waiting for a snow festival, but we have no snow at the moment.
Yeah.
Today it's really, really cold. So that's good, but there's no snow, unfortunately. But as soon as it snows, we will take tools like this. This is a snow drill, or a fake foot printer, and all the other tools we have, and go out into town, in a square in town, and make a snowfest, where we transform that square into a sculpture park. So using snow, we will make a lot of amazing sculpture. And not just snowmen, we'll saw them in half or drill holes in them, and we have sort of molds so we can make special shapes. And this is all inspired by this rather obscure Italian art movement called Arte Povera, where they used all sorts of unfine material. It means poor art, literally. So they used mud and string and stuff like that, and we use snow to make art with people.
And you are very creative, and this is also like reuse, materials.
Yeah, all the tools are made of another poor material from town, this is from an old rocking chair. Yeah. This is just some wood and a stick that we found.
This is also from a chair, and these were just random pieces of wood that we shaped to sort of become new tools that are fit to handle snow with. So we keep our eyes peeled, and we hope that it gets even colder and that there will be masses of snow very soon.
And this event is in cooperation with Aarhus Kommune, yes?
Yes, we're funded by Kulturhuset, and they've been very helpful in funding this project, so we can do it, so we can play when there's snow.
Everybody loves you in Aarhus, and tell us what are other plans, because there are much more coming this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are gonna take part in Counterplay Festival, which is like a conference on play in April, where we will also debut our new scout costumes that we're working on.
Do you have the prototype somewhere? The cardboard one of the head?
No, I threw that out because now I have this.
Do you think about whether these could be rounded maybe? Or do you think they have to be pointy?
I mean, they'll be rounded this way and then they'll be flatter, and they'll also go thinner towards the edge.
Oh,
and
nice.
this
Yeah,
too.
like proper antlers.
So yeah, but they're not really proper antlers because the design is so weird.
Are they going to be bent within
Like-
its shape? Yeah.
Like backwards, or yeah, if anything, then backwards.
And then the ears are going to sit here
Yeah,
and be smaller, sort of like.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they're also going to have the red fabric inside it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
then-
can see that. I think that will be so nice.
Then I think it's sort of.
Oh, it's not too tight, I don't think.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
But
nice.
it also has to.
And here is going to be also fur.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like that. Oh, this is going to be so fun. And we're going to fight who's going to wear it. Because
Whoever gets it first.
I do want to wear it.
In May, we're going to be with Film i Skoven, which is a film festival out in Risskov, which is a beautiful, beautiful festival. It's it feels more like a sort of big garden party than a festival. It's a film festival for kids and families. There'll be lots of activities and lots of films. And in the run-up to that, we'll do some workshops with schools, and also in Gellerup Bibliothek, Gellerup Library, where we will make things that will decorate the walkway, so that coming to the festival will also be a beautiful experience. So you get in the mood.
And tell me, because this all equipment that you have, it also helps introvert kids to be more outspoken and open to the world. Can you tell us how you play with this all things to help kids to get into this all new roles?
I think one thing we realized was that it's much easier to talk to somebody in costume. For us, it's quite important to play with costumes because you slip into a role and you become a little bit somebody else, and you play that role, and it's quite easy to be a bit more outgoing that way. And I think for children it's the same. It's when they see somebody in a really exciting costume, they feel a lot more like they can talk to that person rather than just to another adult. And I think we use that because it's making us more accessible as artists and performers, but also it's really fun. And it's this sort of, it plays with imagination and just the idea that you can be whoever you want to be every now and then.
And I also think that you can have a playful experience without actually playing.
Yeah.
And that's why we make these costumes and make things that just look interesting. So if you look at this, you can sort of make up your own little stories. Even if you see a weird scout with an astronaut helmet from afar, you can have a playful experience without actually having to play if you don't trust, sort of if you don't feel confident walking up to people and playing with them. So it sort of uses this concept of wonder that by just seeing something playful you can sort of get that feeling yourself. If that makes sense.
Yes, it
Yeah?
does. And how looks your normal day? You come here when you start the day here. How it looks like? What are you doing here?
When we when we come in, it's usually quite early. So between 8 and 9, we try to be here, and then it's usually picking up the project from the day before. We also have meetings with each other where we just have a cup of coffee and decide the priorities. What's like the thing we should work on right now? What do we want to get done in this week? And what is sort of more long term? So there's always a couple of projects we work on. It's never just one. And that makes it also exciting because it doesn't get boring ever. And I love that. I mean, it's one of the things that sort of keeps me most excited about the job we have, because it's very flexible and we can shift and we can change tack just the way we need it. And it's very inspiring because we have in each other sparring partners. So it's good to bounce off ideas and check ideas and see what the other one thinks about it and get some constructive feedback. And that way we move forward. and things start developing, sometimes fast and sometimes very slow, because the ideas need to sort of mature over time.
Yeah, it is. In a way, it is a bit like playing how we work, because it's never set. It's never the same thing every day. I mean, sometimes we are on Brabanstien digging holes to put up signs in the rain. And then the next day we are trying this new found material to make a bear hat. And the next day we are preparing a talk for a conference.
Yeah.
So it's very different, and that's super nice. This is a sign from a project called Intag Brabanstien, which is a difficult one to translate, because intag can mean both devour and it can also mean conquer. So conquer Brabanstien or eat Brabanstien. And it's a project with the Smag på Aarhus, where we try to show people all the edible stuff that grows along Brabanstien.
And there's actually quite a lot during the year. So in the spring it starts with herbs and small plants that you can pick and forage. And we have smaller signs where we point out where what is growing. And on the Smag på Aarhus website, they can then download recipes. So if they have found some sort of herb, they then can find out, I can make tea with this, or salad, or spice up an omelette. And then in early summer, there's obviously other things, and during summer and then autumn, with all the fruit trees, and it's amazing what grows there. So we had a lot of fun finding out ourselves that you can use nettles for salad and pies and all of this. And then we set up signs to sort of entice people to throw themselves into the nettles so that they can forage that and cook from it. And our signs are colorful, and they have some typography with it, which keeps it quite open, so we can exchange them. So this might stand next to a apple tree in autumn, and then maybe in summer it has been next to something else. So we want the sort of sense of humor with it as well.
Yeah. These are very much inspired by Alice in Wonderland. That thing of just writing "drink me" or "eat me" on stuff, and not really saying what will happen, what it is, and so on. But it's an invitation.
Yeah. To make people curious.
Yeah, and these are currently, there's nothing really out there. There's probably a few things you can eat, but nothing really worth picking. So there's no signs up at the moment, but we'll put them back up in spring.
Yeah, and now I want to show you, we get sometimes a visitor here. It's a funny bird monster. It has the most beautiful beak, but actually it's Ken. It's just one of our wonderful masks that we like to play with, and this one we created for Festelavn, which is the carnival in February. And we like to dress up, as we've told you before, so I think this was sort of a mix of different ideas we had, because they're for their horns and one eye, and of course it can glow. That's very important, light effects. The only downside is that once you have this mask on, you can't actually see very much, so you need a good friend to lead the way. So it's good to sort of either have one by the hand or carefully lead them, and they become all the more mysterious, because in a way they're a little bit helpless. They need their friend to sort of guide them, but then they are often taller, so there's something about them that's also a little bit fierce, I think, with the horns and sometimes claws and lots of wild fur and a cyclop eye. So yeah, we do quite a lot like that. And yeah, when you tilt your head like this, you look so alive as this creature, and I quite like that. Yeah. Yeah, but it's quite versatile, so we can shift sort of what one has on with this. Sometimes we have a white jacket and furry polar bear trousers. And I might just reach here over, because we made these wonderful polar bear paws. And they've also sometimes, now I have them on. and they become quite lively. So it's really, you can give somebody a bear hug, but when you have a jacket on, no, you can have them on, and you just have this paw sticking out. It just creates this fantasy world that you're not quite what people think you are, and we like that idea a lot. Yeah, and you can stick it in your nose, of course, but they're quite good. And I made different sizes of these, so it's fun to play with that as well. Yeah. Sorry, bird monster.
It's actually not that bad. It's very lightweight.
Got
And
hair in your eye, so
and I got a bit of hair in my eye, which itches.
on the inside as well.
But there's a fair amount of room in here, so it's not too hot.
Do you like being inside there and being somebody else?
Yes, that's nice, but it's nicer to be able to see the world. I'm actually looking out through the beak here.
Yes.
So if I move the fur a little bit, now I can see better.
Ah,
It's very,
without
very little.
us noticing that you can see it all. So that's clever.
And,
Here you are.
yeah. All these
It got warm.
things are about a suspension of disbelief, really, where you kind of know that this is just a cardboard box with some fur on it, but you play along and you sort of accept that this is a weird creature. And what I found with myself when I meet someone who's dressed up is that you do focus on the eye. Even if people are in a costume and you know their eyes are here, but if they put on a head where the eyes are sort of up here, you do look there.
Yeah.
You relate to that.
Yeah.
And I think that transformation is wonderful.
I think also for younger children, when they encounter us in costume, sometimes some really fantastic things happening. Last year at a Filmskolen festival, I was, the year before, I was dressed up as a huge mushroom with a huge mushroom head and a tutu, and it was really quite fun. And I sat on the lawn and we were sort of talking, and then suddenly this little girl, probably about 3 years old, came round the back and tilted her head around, looked at me, and then she asked me whether I was real. And this is something I hold so dear to my heart, because in a way that is what we're trying to do. We want to sort of create something fantastical that children can believe in, or at least they're kind of doubting sometimes maybe the world as we're telling them that it is, that it can be a lot more magical than a lot of the time how we encounter it.
That you can find stories
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
And I mean, we live in a time where reality is sort of a little bit skewed, and that can be confusing and scary, but it can also be a wonderful thing. So I think maybe we're influenced by that. I don't know, we're not really political, but maybe we are influenced by that, and some of the things we make at the moment are playing more with this idea of what is reality. Can an astronaut's helmet be made out of cardboard?
Yeah.
I'll just get some feet that we made that are also playing with that idea.
But I think the importance is to create sort of an enchanted world, and I think that makes everything just so much brighter and more interesting and more curious. And I think for children that's really important. Oh yeah, the feet.
Yeah, we've made these bird feet shoes that come with sort of tights, and they're meant to be worn with the scout costume, but maybe also other costumes. And these are sort of made a little bit more realistic than that guy, for example. So yeah, we're playing with that whole concept of how real are things, and of course you don't believe that these are real feet, but well, maybe you do, maybe you choose to believe it. That's quite a nice thing.
I think that's also why in a secret club it's interesting, because we do have a distinctive style, but when it comes to costumes and creating these creature parts that we then sort of put on and transform into, it's quite important to also play with the sense of reality and design together, so that there's even a huge, a wider variety of things we can do with it, and how we can explore and sort of push it forward, so that we don't feel restricted by saying, "Oh, we just work in red and white," or it always has to sort of have an abstract element about it. So I think we want to be as free as possible when we develop ideas.
Yeah, we try to teach that aspect of it as play as well, so that we are free to change the game if we get a new idea. Yeah, you need to take.
Goodbye.
It's a bit tight, the headband. It's also made of cardboard. So yes, some things are meant to last. This is not really meant to last. These hats are from a project called Skovåndernes Forårsrengøring, the spring clean of the forest spirits, in which we've gone into the woods and cleaned up after the humans with a bunch of families. Mm-hmm. Before we did that, we transformed the families into forest spirits, and as they walk through the forest, they will meet other forest spirits like me, the pine cone man head king, and a raspberry.
Yeah, and we have a couple of volunteers that we work with, and artists, fellow artists who also play with us. So we're a little tribe of forest spirits that run through the forest, and people can find us, and then we engage with them and play with them. So some years I've been a spider and created a huge web where I entangled the children, and then they helped me to create an even bigger spider web. Sometimes, there's this forest berry or raspberry who becomes like a guide to take the children and the families through the forest to meet all the different creatures. And it's really quite special, this project for us, and we try to do it every year. It doesn't always happen, but we try to let it grow and have more players in it and more creatures in that sense. So it challenges our imagination that way, because you want something that's forest related but also quite special and wild.
Yeah, these hats are some of our earlier hats, and I think we have since realized that hats need to be super lightweight because these are heavy. Yeah. And if you walk around in the woods and run around in the woods, it gets very heavy after a while.
Yeah, or warm.
The forest is so many things. It's sort of a symbol of nature. It's a nice place to go, and stuff like pollution and littering just really shows up in a forest. It's very visible. You don't think necessarily so much about it when you walk through a town, but if you're in a forest and you see a Coke can or a sweet wrapper, it's very visible. That's one thing the forest is. It's also a place of fairy tales and discovery and seeing wild animals. I mean, we have all this talk about wolves at the moment in Denmark, but it's so exciting to see just a squirrel or a fox or a deer in the woods, and you hear noises and so on.
Yeah, and I think it's like a playground, a natural playground. So when you go to the forest, you're removed from all the other influences that a town environment gives you. So it becomes more quiet. You hear suddenly sounds of nature, like birds chirping and little leaves flapping in the wind, and you change yourself as well through that environment. And I think it's really adventurous, because you start to notice other things that you don't think about when you are living in a town. And I think it's a huge source of inspiration for us, the forest, because it's tranquil, but it also, challenges the imagination with all the stories, all the things we've grown up with, all the fairy tales, and how beautiful, enchanted that is. So in a way, we create our own little fairy tale in it when we do our forest spirit project.
We love to play, and we want to play with people even if we're not with them. So we sometimes do stuff like the introverted playground that we talked about last time, but we also make things that allow people to play when we are not around to play with them. And one of them is these Insta beards, so that you can instantly grow a beard and become a wizard or just a
Wonderful bearded lady.
Wonderful bearded lady. Yeah, we even have a sort of approved by previously unbearded ladies on this, so it is approved by previously unbearded ladies.
And basically it's a paper kit, so one can cut out the beard and then fold the moustache bit over and fit an elastic on, and then becomes this beautiful face decoration.
Yeah, and you
An
can
improvement.
you can get them from our web shop, and we've printed them in this Japanese technique called riso printing, which is beautiful and a little bit random, so it makes them all unique. And beards are a fun thing to play with. This December, we opened a museum of fake Christmas beard inside Tivoli Friheden, where we exhibited all sorts of fake beards, so people could identify them, because there's a lot of fake beards around in December. And it's important to know your fake beards from your real beards.
Yes,
Yeah?
definitely. And it was fun to sort of open a museum like this, because people were sort of tentative at first, and then they were just too curious. So they came in and looked around, and it created a lot of entertainment, because we had also mirrors with beards stuck on. So when you looked into the mirror, you had an instant beard in your face, and we had hung them at different heights, so it was something for the whole family. And there were a lot of selfies taken.
Yeah.
And people were absolutely fearless when it came to beards.
Yeah. That was the interactive part of our museum, because we want to be cutting edge. And it's
Always.
more or less the same technique that Snapchat filters utilize.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we got a lot of positive feedback. So a beard museum is certainly the way forward.
And people got to know about all the fake beards that they have to look out for in December. But thank God that's over now for another 11 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.